Hi everyone, welcome back to Average Fitness, fitness hints and tips for the average person. And in today's video we're going to be looking at 3 different variations of the same home workout that you can do using minimal equipment or pretty much no equipment. The only thing I'm going to be using is my backpack, which I filled with some bottles of water, tins of beans, etc. If you can find something similar, that's all you're going to need. And like I say, we're going to be looking at 3 different variations of the exact same workout. And the reason I mention that is, with the gyms currently being closed, or for the the beginner who doesn't feel comfortable going to the gym even when the gyms are open, working out at home presents a couple of challenges. Number one being, it's easy to get bored of doing the same workouts, and when you don't have equipment and machines to use to vary it up, that can lead to being demotivated in the short term. So what I thought we would do is look at a pretty simple workout based on a couple of bodyweight exercises, but then do a couple of different versions that you can do to keep your mind occupied, so you're not getting bored of doing the exact same number of reps, exact same number of sets. So the 3 exercises we're going to be looking at doing are going to cover our whole body. So we're going to do squats for our legs, we're going to do press-ups for our chest and triceps, and we're going to do a slight variation of the same back and biceps exercise, and that's what we're going to be using the backpack for. So make sure you're nice and warmed up, make sure you're all stretched and ready to go, and make sure you've got some water to one side or a sports drink to keep you hydrated as we're working out. Okay, so like we said, the 3 exercises that we're going to be doing are going to cover our whole body, and we're going to start off with squats. Alright, so for your squats, you're going to keep your feet pretty much hip width apart or slightly wider, and your feet facing directly forward or slightly out to the side, which is the way I prefer to do them. What you're going to do is you're going to bend your knees, stick your backside back towards the wall, and try and keep your chest nice and high. What I do is tuck my chin slightly and find a point on the floor to look at, so that when you come down, you come all the way down until your knees and hips are in line, so they're parallel to the floor, and then drive up through the heels. Alright, that's the ideal technique. For most beginners, it can be very difficult to come all the way down, and it can take some getting used to in terms of getting your balance. And one of the ways that you can correct that is by elevating your heels very, very slightly. Since we're working out from home, all I've got is a folded up piece of cardboard which I've taped together, and I simply place that on the floor, stand my heels on that with the front of my foot on the actual floor, and that just changes the position of your feet so that when you come down, it's much easier to go deeper towards the floor, and then you can drive back up through the heels. Remember to try and keep your chest nice and high if you can. So whether you're using that or not, whether you have something suitable or not, do your best to get down towards parallel, but it is more important to keep your chest up than it is to go all the way down, especially if you're a beginner. As you work out more and more, and as you work on your flexibility, you will get the correct form. It just takes practice. Okay? So the second exercise that we're going to be doing is press-ups. Obviously very, very simple. Hands directly under your shoulders, core nice and tight, legs straight, bend at the elbows, and then drive back up. Alright? Now that can be quite difficult for beginners, so the variation on that to make it a little bit easier would be to do it on your knees. If you are going to do that, hands in the same position, make sure your knees are behind your hips. So you don't want to be starting from this position, you want your knees to be much further back, keep your core tight, so that when you bend your elbows, your entire body goes down towards the floor, and then you drive back up. To make it even easier, you can use either a kitchen bench or something similar to rest against. Have your feet at a 45-degree angle so that when you come down, you again keep your core nice and tight, and that's even easier again. And the reason I mention that is, for this particular workout, what you want to do is you want to have a high number of reps. So for example, say you decide you're going to do your squats and you're going to do 5 sets. You probably want to aim for between 10 and 15 reps per set. So let's pick the number 12, and you do 5 sets of 12 reps. So you would do 12 squats, then you take a short break. You do 12 press-ups, short break, and then move on to the third exercise, which is for our back and biceps. And that's what we're going to be using this backpack for, or like I say, if you have something similar, whether it be a shopping bag or whatever, that's absolutely fine. And what you want to do is load it up with as much weight as you can, really. Start in this position, and then you're going to bend your elbows and bring them up to your chin, and then back down. So that's 1. And again, you would do 12 reps in total. Trying to arch your back or use any momentum, and do 12 reps total. And that constitutes 1 set. So 12 squats, short break, 12 press-ups, short break, 12 standing row. That's what we call this exercise. 12 standing rows, and then you can take a slightly longer break. And that will be 1 set. So 5 sets in total of around 12 reps per exercise. And that's workout number 1. Once you're finished, get nice and stretched, and make sure to stay nice and hydrated. So For workout number 2, what we're actually going to do is we're going to keep the number of sets the same, so 5 sets in total, but we're going to lower the reps to more like 8. And in order to make it a little bit more difficult, because that does sound much easier doing 8 reps instead of 12, in order to make it a little bit more difficult, we're going to add some weight to each exercise. So for example, I'm going to use the backpack for my squats. If you have a backpack, then that would be perfect. If you don't, then getting a box, maybe a storage box with some items in there to make it a little bit heavier. For this one, I'm going to be using the cardboard just to elevate my heels. And again, you're going to do 8 reps of exactly the same form. So bend at your knees, stick your backside backwards, and keep your chest nice and high. And obviously doing 8 reps is going to be easier than 12, but adding the weight is going to make the exercise more difficult. So a very subtle change in the actual exercise, working the same muscles but in a slightly different way. And we're going to apply the exact same rule to the press-ups. So keep the backpack on. Obviously, depending on the actual amount of weight you add, will have an impact on how difficult the exercise is going to be. But you're going to keep the form exactly the same, whether it be standard press-ups, or whether it be press-ups on your knees, or if you're doing them against the kitchen bench, or what have you. If you don't have a backpack or anything suitable for press-ups, what you can do to make the exercise a little bit more difficult is change the position of your hands. So for example, I'll just get this out of the way. So for example, instead of having your hands directly under your shoulders, you can bring them slightly closer together or move them slightly further apart. So whichever feels best for you. So for example, hands closer together, exact same form. Alright? Same rule applies if you have your hands further apart. Exactly the same form, keep your body nice and rigid, keep your core nice and tight, and focus on the actual muscles that are being worked, so the muscles in your back of your arm, your shoulders and your chest, and kind of go as deep as you can towards the floor. And that's going to add a little bit of difficulty to your standard press-ups. If you currently are looking to do 12 reps and you do them on your knees, try and do your 8 reps as regular press-ups. And if you can only do 5 or 6, then drop to your knees and finish your set. As I said before, we're going to be doing 5 sets in total, so you can play around with it a little bit depending on your current fitness level. For our back exercise, we're going to be using the backpack again. So, as you can see, I've changed my equipment slightly. What I've done is I've placed the backpack inside a bucket. There's no real benefit to that in terms of adding any weight, but it just makes it a little bit more practical in terms of lifting the actual weight. And we're going to be using a chair. You don't have to use a chair, you can use something similar, a similar sort of height. And what we're going to do is, you're going to place your knee and the same hand, so in my case right hand, on the surface, whatever you're using. You're going to move the weight into position, and your starting point is here. Make sure your back's nice and straight, and you're simply going to bend at the elbow, bringing the weight up to this position, and then back down again. So that's 1 rep. And again, you're going to go for about 8. The slower you do these, the more difficult they are. So try and control the weight up and down. Don't just yank it up as quick as you can and then drop it again. And then obviously you're going to switch arms. So to do so, you simply switch positions and do the exact same thing on the other side. And the benefit of this versus the previous workout that we did is that in this case we're essentially doubling the weight because we're using exactly the same weighted backpack, but we're using 1 arm to lift instead of 2. So you can see how by adding weight to each exercise we've made them slightly more difficult, and to counteract that we've had slightly fewer reps. That completes workout number 2, assuming you've done all 5 sets. As I said, you don't need to do 5 sets, you don't need to do 8 reps, you can do whatever you want. But if you look at the previous workout where we did 5 sets of 12, and in this workout we've added a little bit of weight, but we're doing 5 sets of 8. So a very subtle variation on the actual workout itself, which can just vary things up a little bit and kind of get your muscles working in a slightly different way. Now we'll move on to workout number 3. So for workout number 3, obviously we could just add a little bit more weight, or another way we could vary the workout is to simply take longer to do each rep. Those are very easy things to do, and they aren't necessarily freshening up the workout so much. They will definitely have an impact, but it's not kind of a different variation for yourself in terms of keeping your mind occupied. So we're going to do slightly different exercise for our legs, and we're still going to use the backpack, but we're going to do split squats instead of regular squats. For this, you're going to need a surface of about sofa height, so a sofa is absolutely perfect. And what you're going to do is you're going to place one foot with the top of your foot facing down, and you're going to have your other leg out in front of you, and then you're going to bend at the knee, come down, and then drive back up. Much like in the last exercise where we used 1 arm for our single arm rows as opposed to the double arm rows from the previous workout, you're basically doubling how hard this exercise is because you're using one leg instead of two. Obviously having the second leg on the sofa does add a bit of support, so it's not technically doubled in terms of the actual weight you're lifting, but it does make a big difference to how much of the muscle you're actually using. So if you are going to be doing split squats with the same weight as your regular squats, I would recommend lowering the number of reps. So in the last workout we did 8, here 5 or 6 is absolutely fine. Same with the press ups, you want to be lowering the number of reps but adding a little bit of difficulty. So if in the last exercise you did regular press ups with some weight, then maybe move to close arm or wide arm press ups with the same weight. Or another subtle variation is to elevate your feet. So again, I'm going to use the sofa, and again exactly the same form. Keep your core nice and tight, and then drive back up. And again, you would do 5 or 6 reps depending on your preference. And finally, in terms of our back and bicep exercise, unless you can add more weight to your backpack or whatever weight it is that you're using, what I would probably do is do the exact same exercise you did in workout number 2, the single arm row using the chair or whatever platform you're using to kind of, we did it in the last workout for 8 reps. What I would probably do is either add some weight to that and do it for fewer reps if you can. If that's not practical, maybe take a little bit of the weight out and move to curls. Or another variation would be do that exact same exercise again, but then add some curls at the end. Again, I'm using my bucket just because it's a little bit more practical. And for curls, all you're going to do is keep your back nice and straight. I like to stagger my feet position so I'm not stood with my feet side by side. Stagger your feet position, keep your body nice and straight, upright, and then bend at the elbow and back down again. That's the handle making that noise, that's not my joints. And again, depending on whether you've added weight or not, if you've added weight to your backpack or whatever weight you're using, or if you have some dumbbells lying around, great, then maybe just stick with the single arm row. If you can't add weight, do the single arm row, maybe lower the weight slightly, and then add a set of curls as well, so that it's just adding that extra pressure onto your biceps and your back as well. There we go, 3 different variations of pretty much the same exact workout covering your whole body. What I like to do when I'm finished working out in a full body exercise is do a little bit of ab work, whether that just be a plank for 30 seconds or so, or a couple of other exercises as well. And then, very, very important, stretch and hydrate. Can't stress enough how important that is. Hopefully these workouts have been useful. Hopefully you found some value from them. If you want to reach out for more hints and tips, then by all means do so. But until next time, take it easy.